How's it going, YouTube? Prisco TCG here, coming at you with another deck profile. So, I played Time Thief in my RDIQ, and I played Pure. As always, I really am just a big fan of the Pure version of the deck, Pure Control mid-range version of the deck. And I really had a lot of fun. I wasn't expecting to get top 8, but I did. I actually just got 8th place. I was just able to squeeze in there. And I went 3-2. I played against 1 Drytron and 4 Tri-Brigade. Very, very eventful day. I had no sleep, and both of my losses were not to anything crazy other than I just lost to Zeus. So there's that. But besides the point, I had a lot of fun. I got 8th place. There was a top 8 play out, but I ended up losing in round 1 of the top 8 cut. So it is what it is. I wasn't expecting to get top 8. I wasn't even expecting to do well. So I'll take 8th place where I can get it. Either way, I'll go ahead and get into the deck profile. I don't want to linger on here for too long. I do have to get to work very soon, so we're gonna kind of breeze through the stuff that we've already seen, and then I'll go into some of the more intricate stuff afterwards. So starting off with the main deck, we are playing the 3 copies of Time Thief Regulator. So 3 copies of Time Thief Regulator. This is your rescue rabbit, your rescue cat, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it rescue robot. You essentially summon him, and while you have no other monsters, you contribute him off the field and summon 2 more Time Thief monsters from your deck other than himself. Most of the time, if you don't already have them in your hand, you are summoning Time Thief Winder. This guy is your Stratos. He searches any other card in the deck besides himself, and he's really good. He's actually got a pretty, high attack stat for what he is. 1800. Sometimes you can just normal summon him, and if your opponent doesn't have anything set up, then you can just start attacking and do some damage to their life points, and a pretty hefty amount. Sometimes he can attack over certain things as well. It is what it is. One of his key things is that he's able to summon himself from the hand by detaching from an XYZ monster that you control, and that makes him a pretty good extender. And your other extender is your 3 copies of Time Thief Adjuster. This card, ever since she came out, has kind of put this deck a little bit further over the top where I want it to be. It's still nowhere near as strong as it needs to be meta, but it is very fun. It can hold its own against a lot of the meta decks that are out there. What she does is she's your Kagemucha Knight. So if you go normal summon Winder and you have her in hand, well, you just go chainlink 1 Winder, chainlink 2 Adjuster to chain block the Winder. The other thing that you can't do on the same turn as you use the summoning effect from the hand is she's able to dump any Time Thief card from your deck to the graveyard, which makes her very useful, very versatile in the grind game. So if you happen to top deck her while you have Redoer on the field, you can go normal summon Adjuster and then use her to dump Flyback or dump Bezel Ship or Chrono Quarter or whatever you really just need so that you can continue comboing off. And then speaking of Bezel Ship, we are playing the 2 copies of Bezel Ship. I do think 2 is correct in a very pure version of the deck. Because this is your this is one form of interruption that you can use against your opponent. Being able to steal cards from their graveyard is very useful, and then summoning him back every turn with Perpetua or his own effect, being able to detach material from an XYZ monster to special summon him to the field, makes him a very solid extender, as well as a pseudo DD Crow, which is actually really insane. And then for our 1 of Time Thief monster is 1 of Chrono Quarter. Chrono Quarter doesn't come up all the time, but she does have some really niche plays, like when she's attached to a Redoer. You can detach this from Redoer to apply his effect to banish himself, and by the time this hits the graveyard, Redoer then banishes himself afterwards, which means she can use her effect to summon herself from the graveyard if an XYZ monster leaves the field by a card effect, which Redoer does to himself. On top of that, This has a magic cylinder type effect where you contribute this during your opponent's battle phase, and they would just take the next damage you would take instead. So there's that. For our only real extender that we have here is Raid Raptor Strangulanius. This card's actually kind of nuts. Just if you have a dark monster on the field, you can just special summon him to the field. And he's a level 4 dark body. He does lock you in the darks, but it doesn't really matter because most of the time you're just summoning Redoer anyway, and he's a dark. So he does have another effect that doesn't come up in this deck just because we're not playing any other Raid Raptors. But if you have an XYZ monster that has a dark XYZ monster as material, you can special summon a Raid Raptor for level 4 lower graveyard Raid Raptor monster from your graveyard. Its effects are negated. So the only time that this would really come up in this deck is if you are going into Raider's Night with Arc Rebellion and you happen to have Raider's Night still under the Arc Rebellion, which you probably should anyway. But at that point, you probably used this to summon this anyway. So there's that. So moving on to the hand traps, we played 3 copies of Skullmeister. Decided to play Skullmeister instead of Ghost Bell, although I do think Ghost Bell is a lot better. Skullmeister in general still hits a lot of the same things that Ghost Bell hits, and it's also a dark level 4. So in a pinch, if you really need to just normal summon something just so that you can special summon this and get a Redoer on field, then you can go ahead and do so with him. There was actually times where I straight up just said normal summon Skullmeister, attack, and pass turn, because he's 1700, so it's not like he's not a big body. He can get over some things. At one point, I think I straight up just did Skullmeister beatdown because I didn't see anything else, and neither did my opponent, so I was just, constantly attacking with Skullmeister. Next, we were playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think that this is going to ever leave the main deck, even with Crossout Designator right around the corner. And then we played the 3 copies of Gamma with the Driver. This is pretty self-explanatory because you're playing a Rescue Cat type card. If you go ahead and normal summon Regulator and then you use Regulator's effect to tribute himself, you now have no monsters on field because Regulator needs no other requires you to have no other monsters on field to use his effect anyway. You just Gamma if they decide to Ash, and then you go for Omega and punish them. For the spells, the spell and trap lineup hasn't changed too much. I think it's actually exactly the same as it was in my last Time Thief deck profile. There weren't too many changes other than maybe some ratios here and there. A lot of the changes actually happened in the side deck, so you'll see those in a moment. 3 Pot of Prosperity. This card's just fucking insane for this deck. Being able to just dig for those extenders or dig for those starters that you really need. This card helps so much, and I can't express how much I think that this card is just necessary for the deck. 2 copies of Time Thief Startup. As much as I hate this card, I'm not gonna lie, this card has actually come up quite a lot in very clunky hands where I'm seeing multiple monsters but not a way to get to a Redoer. I just normal summon Winder and then use Winder to search for this. Go neg 1 in the process, but it ends up being fine because I probably drew into some other form of trap or hand trap, so I have ways to interact with my opponent. Search for this to summon out whatever else is in my hand so that I can get it out of my hand, and then end up being able to still make plays. So as much as I don't like this card for being a neg 1 inherently, it's still useful and it still has its place in the deck, so I decided just to play it. 1 Called by the Grave. This card's just nuts. You kind of have to play it with the type of deck that we are running here. For the traps, we are playing 3 copies of Shade Brigadine. This is your only other extender besides Raid Raptor Strangulanius. Having access to this early in the game, though, kind of makes your deck able to play through interruption. There was a game where I had regulator, winder, startup, this, and something else in my hand, and I was able to play through an Ash, as well as an Effect Veiler. So yeah, there was a lot that happened in that game with that hand specifically. I still ended on a redoer with a trap, and I was able to push for game because this was like in a grind. Oh, for those who don't know, the good thing about this card is that it summons itself as a level 4 body, right? And you can activate it to turn it set as long as you have no other traps in grave. So turn 1 and turn 2, this card's actually really good, especially if you're not playing cards like Imperm. So you literally just like normal summon a body, get your search if it's winder, and then set, activate, boom, now you have redoer of the trap, which is why this card is actually really good. And now for the other traps, we were playing 2 copies of Torrential Tribute. I really like this card because it can just end certain turns, especially because redoer can just protect himself. So he literally, you literally set this, make a redoer, and then you go redoer effect, or you go activate Torrential Tribute on your opponent's summon, chain redoer, bounce himself, destroy all the monsters on the field, and then during the end of the turn, redoer comes back. So this card is pretty nuts. It's really good in this deck. I highly recommend it. Next, we're playing 2 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. I would be playing 3, but I just don't have the room, and I'm already at 42 cards as it is. So there's that. But this card can actually act as a pseudo extender in a grind game where you really need to just get another body on field, because you can just summon any level 4 out of your opponent's graveyard. But on top of that, against certain decks, this card's just insane. Because you can steal certain cards from your opponent. So, for instance, against Drytron, if they go to negate something with Orange Light, let's say, and then they send Eva from their hand, which they're probably not going to be doing too much anyway, because now Eva's been put to 1 starting October 1st. But let's say they do Orange Light, send Eva, which I had this interaction come up, and they had, I think they had either a Beatrice or a Ben 10 on field. I flipped up the Ice Dragon's Prison, stole their Eva, banished their Ben 10 and the Eva. I actually also had an interaction come up where they normal summoned a zoo monster, where another player, but they normal summoned a zoo monster, I think it was Thoroughblade, and then I flipped up the Ice Dragon's Prison, stole Fractal out of their graveyard, and then bounced banished their Fractal plus their Thoroughblade, so they weren't able to go into a zoo. So this card comes up quite a lot. Next, 2 copies of Flyback. I really think that 2 is correct because if you see one in your opening hand, it's not the end of the world. You can just make redoer and then set this, and then you use this to attach the second copy of itself instead of Perpetua. Or if you don't see it, then you just attach one off of to redoer off of Perpetua, and then you just use this in grave later as your DD Crow that same turn. So I really think that having access to 4 in archetype DD Crows is just insane. Being able to steal cards from your opponent to stop them from extending or stop them from summoning monsters or what have you. This card's pretty insane. And then for the final 2 cards, 1 copy of Retrograde and 1 copy of Imperial Order. Pretty self-explanatory. Imperial Order kind of just wins games, especially this is a trap heavy deck, so we really don't rely on our spells too much. And then Retrograde being able to negate certain things such as droplets, imperm, and stuff like that. Problematic cards, even Retrograde, or sorry, Dark Ruler No More, being able to negate those problematic cards to make sure that we don't allow our opponent to play. Moving on to the extra deck, there hasn't been much changes aside from one. I'm now running 3 copies of Time Thief Redoer instead of 2. I feel like in a grind game, especially against another trap-heavy deck, like that's running like Solemn Strikes and Solemn Judgments, you really just need access to a third one to help you push for game. And then sometimes if they get Solemn Striked, the summon never actually happens, so you can't summon it back off of Perpetua. So you need to just make sure that you always have access to a Redoer in this deck. And I'm also playing other ways to get into Redoer or to recycle my Redoers. So aside from Perpetua here, which we're playing 2 of, we're also not playing the Double Barrel. Double Barrel hasn't come up for me at all. So I decided to cut Double Barrel, play a third Redoer. Side note, I actually, while playing in the event, I was playing my regular super rare Perpetuas instead of my Starlights, even though they're both double sleeved. I didn't want to flex too hard. Same thing with my next card. I decided not to play my ultimate rare Abyss Dweller. I played my regular ultra rare. So there's that. But that's besides the point. Abyss Dweller didn't come up at all, like at any point that I feel like I needed to make him. But that's one of those cards that you just kind of put in there in case you need it. I probably could have made it against Drytron, and I probably could have made it in every matchup that I had the entire day. And it would have been fine, but I just didn't. Because having access to Redo a Perpetua and then 2 in Archetype DD Crows in the same turn was just insane. So, there's that. Abyss Dweller definitely needs to stay in the deck, I would suggest. The other way I have in the deck to recycle my Redoers is Daigusto Emerald. If I'm going into a game where I have access to multiple ways of putting up rank 4s on the field, then I would just go Daigusto Emerald, shuffle back a Redoer from grave, draw a card, and then make Redoer afterwards. Daigusto Emerald is very useful in this deck. He's also, like, not small. He's 1800 beaters, so you can start attacking with him to get over, like, problematic cards. It's not too big, so he's got the same stats as, the same attack stat as a, Winder. His real only purpose is just to shuffle back my Redoers. 1 Tornado Dragon just for problematic back row decks. It's a good card. I can't really say too much about it. You kind of just have to play it. 1 Evil Swarm Nightmare because it's a double Book of Moon. So certain cards, certain decks like Drytron, you know, you Book of Moon whatever one of their monsters that's on the field that's been special summoned. They can't really do much with it afterwards. Against Tri-Brigade, you just book their normal summon. Not their normal summon, but you book, like, their Karis if they happen to use the effect. I wouldn't make this against Tri-Brigade, if I'm being totally honest. I would definitely make it against Drytron, though, because flipping some of their cards face down just kind of hurts them a lot. And then Raiders Night with the Ark Rebellion, which you saw earlier. I actually, like, stole quite a lot of games with this. Being able to just, like, put up, you know, a fucking 10,000 attack point monster and just attack over whatever. It's pretty fun. And then the 1 Zeus that I didn't make it at all. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I didn't make Zeus at all. I didn't feel that there was a point during my RDIQ where I felt like I needed to make Zeus. And then the points where I did feel like I need to make Zeus, I ended up losing to 1 end instead, so it is what it is. But that's it for the XYZs. 1 Synchro. This is aside from Lord Omega. You make this off of your Gamma and your Driver, and then you rip a card out of your opponent's hand to punish them for trying to stop you from playing. So there's that. And then to go along with it is the 1 Lambda. I did make 1 extra change, and you'll see it right now. I didn't make this at all, but I was actually worried about some back row decks showing up. So as much as I don't like this card, Fujinki Hashima allows me to put up an extra XYZ. It also helps me get bricks out of my hand. Now, although I can't use this as link material and ends up just being a dead card on the field afterwards, it does have another effect that if an XYZ monster that this card is pointing to would activate its effect by detaching for cost, then you can pop a spell or trap that your opponent controls. So if you have this up in the EMZ and you're playing against the back row deck and you make Tornado Dragon, then you just go Bujinki, Tornado Dragon effect, detach for cost, chain Bujinki Hashima, and then pop 2 cards. So now it gets more value out of your Tornado Dragon because now you have 4 spell and trap pops aside from just 2. Moving on to the side deck. The side is where some of the major changes actually took place. I took out quite a lot and I put in other things that I thought were going to be very useful. So for hand traps, 3 Nibiru, pretty self-explanatory. It was kind of needed. Actually, I didn't use this at all. There was never a deck that I felt like I was going to need this against, so I just didn't use it. 3 Drone Lockbird. This card came up quite a bit, actually. My Drytron matchups were hurting because of the Droll, and then this actually won me the game. 2 Lancia. I only played 2 because I only had the room for 2, but I saw this in my hand every time I sided it into the deck, so I guess, I don't know, I think the card likes me. And then finally 1 Pankratops. Pankratops actually was kind of nuts at one point. I was able to special summon Pankratops, attacked over something, and then popped something else, and then going into main phase 2, I just, normal summoned Regulator, used the effect, and I was able to set up my own form of a board that kind of just stopped my opponent from being able to do stuff. And then next, 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. This came up quite a bit. Normally, if I'm going to use Dark Ruler No More, I would also, in the same turn, try to make a Zeus, just so that I can wipe my opponent's board. But I actually didn't need to, because as well as opening Dark Ruler No More, I actually ended up opening Lightning Storm in those same turns. And again, although I'm only playing 2, because I only had the room for 2, I'm also playing the Harpies. So again, back row decks didn't really bug me too much. So most of the time, if I did open Dark Ruler, for some reason I had Lightning Storm in my hand as well. So I would go like Dark Ruler, then Lightning Storm on a new chain, wipe their board, and then I would proceed to play the way that I wanted to. So that's that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you leave a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you like the deck, if you don't like the deck, whatever it is, I'd love to hear it. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.